Hi, I am Charmel Catrell. I am an actress, I'm a writer, I'm a poet, an author, as well as now mental health advocate. And my journey to mental wellness and just overall mental well-being started a little over a year and a half ago, close to almost 2 years now. I had been struggling with depression, with anxiety, and oftentimes suicidal ideation, off and on for years. And I eventually slipped into a very deep depression and then suffered a complete emotional and mental breakdown, at which point in time, I had to start to address my mental health and my mental well-being. And the reason behind the anxiety, behind the depression was simply I didn't feel like I was enough, whether that was professionally or personally. Now, professionally, I'm a creative. And a lot of times as creatives, we are offering up the very essence, the very core of who we are, sometimes to be picked, prodded, and oftentimes rejected. And if we're not careful, then it can start to take a toll on us. And then personally, I didn't feel like I was enough. Whether that was in intimate relationships or friendships, with an exception for a few, simply because none of those relationships were working. And so what I now know is those relationships were playing into my own self-fulfilling prophecy of me feeling like I wasn't enough or me feeling like I wasn't worthy. And so I had to start therapy. And I thank God for therapy, because what I learned to do in therapy was, start to peel back the layers and get to the root cause as to how I arrived in this space, in this place of feeling like I wasn't enough and I wasn't worthy. And for me, that meant going back to my childhood and healing that trauma. And that trauma simply being my mother and father divorcing when I was very young. I think I was probably about 5 or 6. And I went from being a daddy's girl, the apple of my father's eye, spoiled in a sense, and being able to get any and everything that I wanted. And then the divorce happening and us moving away, and then going on to what felt like being out of sight, out of mind in my father's eyes. And that took a huge emotional toll on me. And I carried that all the way through my childhood to my teenage years, my young adult years, all the way up into I was a full-fledged woman. And the way that I would deal with a lot of that pain throughout the years is I would write poetry. And some of those poems have now gone on to be what is now known as Mind Trip, which is my collection of poetry on Amazon. And I had no clue I was going to release this collection, but God had other plans for me. And I'm so grateful that I did, because not only am I in a space and I'm in a place right now where I feel like I'm enough, but I know it. And I also know that I had to start therapy so that I could, start my journey to healing, and not only use therapy, but also release this collection as another form to my healing, so that I could reach back to other women, especially who have gone through the same things that I've went through, or who are currently going through those same things that I've gone through, and just let them know that it is possible to not only rise up out of any situation and circumstance that you're going through, but also that it is very, very possible to have both God and therapy. You do not have to choose. And so what I want to do is I want to share a piece with you from my collection. It is titled We Rise. All my life, I had to fight. No, not like Sophia from Color Purple, but more because my mind spins in circles. See, childhood was the beginning to the end, that my sanity at times would not win. Feeling my feelings so deeply that So-called friends would move away from me sheeply. How was I supposed to know this thing called mental illness would grow? Blackout on days that were so bright, waking up in places that didn't feel right, drowning my pain and sorrows in any kind of booze, basically setting myself up to lose. Father never loved me properly. Maybe that's why there is no stopping me. Even on days I can't move from my bed, I know I've got to get out of my head. Living in a world where everyone is succeeding, but seems like I'm only capable of pleading, begging for opportunities, but like Sandman, they only throw their shoe at me. Is there a God on this thing called life? Or just an omen that it comes with strife? Praying to become someone's wife. The thought of no love feels like a knife. Even on my darkest days, I am reminded, if the phoenix rises from the ashes, and everything I want in life, I will find it. It is possible to rise out of that situation and that circumstance. I know because I am a witness. I'm Charmel Catrell, and this is my brave.